Welcome to the Fatherhood Challenge, a movement to awaken and inspire fathers everywhere to take great pride in their role and to challenge society to understand how important fathers are to the stability and culture of their family's environment. Now, here's your host, Jonathan Guerrero.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest is Stephen Kennedy. Stephen Kennedy is not the typical guest, and the reason why is because of what he actually does. He coaches and works with dads through the birthing experience. And I have to say, I was very surprised when I learned what he does because I didn't know something like this existed. I didn't know this was a resource. I didn't know that there were men out there who coached other dads through the birthing experience. So right off the bat, I knew that if I connected with him, I would be in for quite an education. So I'm excited to have him on because I know you're going to learn so much for him. He's also the founder of the Prepare Foundation. So we're going to learn a little bit about all these different things that he does. So Stephen, thank you so much for being on the program.
Oh, Jonathan, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Starting out, what is your favorite dad joke?
Oh, well, when it comes to dad jokes, look, I'm just a big fan of any kind of pun. Any pun is to me, a classic. But so my partner was recently getting her eyes lasered to allow her to see better, and she was telling a friend, and her friend said, "Oh, that kind of technology is improved out of sight," and I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome." But I think one of my other ones is, what did the ocean say to the boy? Nothing. He just waved. I like that one.
I like puns too. My father-in-law is just a genius and a whiz at puns. They just roll off his tongue one after another. It seems almost nonstop. So dinner conversations can be quite entertaining. So I do love puns.
Yeah, it's magnificent when you get a few rolling on and a few people riffing off each other. It makes me laugh.
So you are the founder of the Prepare Foundation. What is the Prepare Foundation and why did you start it?
Yeah, so the Prepare Foundation is a registered charity here in Australia. So with tax deductible status, fully registered by the government. Prepare stands for Perinatal Relationship Education and Paternal Advocacy Research and Engagement. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it does define all of the things that we want to do in this early fatherhood space. We mostly work with first time fathers because we feel that it's about maternity care a lot of the time, and it's about trying to educate dads or expectant dads essentially about what is coming up for them. So we want to work in the relationship education space, help men understand that when they do become fathers, and in that first year, it is a difficult time for their relationship. Up to 92% of couples report that they have increased conflict around this time. And I think that not only dads, but mothers as well are kind of blindsided by the changes in their relationship. The intimacy might go, the connection, they go from being connected to one another to just trying to look after their child. So the dynamics of relationships really changes. So we want to kind of, I guess you'd say, warn fathers of that and just say that, look, any changes in identity of yourself and your partner and your relationship are all natural, and not to blame the individual person for the way the mother might have to just look after the child. So there's the relationship education. We want to advocate for fathers in this space. So in Australia, I guess it's the same in the US and in other countries. Dads don't get to stay overnight straight after their baby is born. Sometimes they're asked to leave, and we feel that that's actually counterintuitive to having nurturing, kind of looking after brand new families. And I talk to a lot of dads who that really it harms them emotionally. So research, we're also doing some research with some universities here. We're working with Western Sydney University on culturally and linguistically diverse fathers at the moment, and we're always looking for opportunities to expand the research base around fathers, which does need looking at. I'd have to say. And then we've got engagement. So the engagement side is trying to get dads themselves involved during pregnancy in order to be better prepared for birth and that that transition to fatherhood, that first crucial 1,000 days of a child's life. Yeah, so that's the
Mm.
Prepare Foundation.
And you're also the founder of Birthing Dads. What is that, and
Yes.
why did you start it?
Well, Birthing Dads is a social enterprise, and it essentially has products that help like educate fathers. That's the engagement arm of the charity, and so it's set up in order to provide a sustainable funding source for the charitable work. So we have a transition to fatherhood package, which is a 4-hour online video kind of educational course that I present, and I've interviewed 15 of Australia's top perinatal experts and asked them what kind of advice they would give the first time father. And we've also licensed a product from the UK called DadPad. So I just put a plug out there for DadPad. It's a wonderful resource for when you've got the baby in your arms and you're wondering what next. It is a comprehensive manual. A lot of people say you don't get manuals for children, but this is teaches that first time father those really crucial things around
I love
even
that.
holding your baby, and changing nappies and soothing them and, just working out their communication style. And we've also licensed another product called Towards Parenthood, which is created by a not-for-profit organisation here in Australia called the Parent and Infant Research Institute. And they do a lot of research around, what the name suggests, parents and infants. And they created something called Towards Parenthood, which is like a preparation manual, and it's got a lot of questions, and you fill out the questions, and it gets you really talking about what's to come, talking about your relationship, talking about your parenting style, and it's really trying to get parents prepared before they cross that threshold. So those things, and plus a couple of other things, make up what we call the transition to fatherhood package.
I would have loved to have known about these resources and had access to them before my first son was born. That would have been a huge help, and I know it would have been a big help to many other dads as well. But it is not too late for dads listening now, for new dads. These are great resources. So I appreciate you sharing them.
Oh,
So we're going to go
I,
into something that may be a little bit of a challenge or difficult to talk about. I'm coming into this with an open mind because a lot of the stuff we're talking about, I honestly don't know the answers to. So for this dad that's listening right now, for that dad, I'm going to be learning right along with you. So let's start with the first question on why we're here. So we're talking about birth trauma. What is birth trauma and how does it happen to dads? And also, what are the differences in the resources available to help dads and moms who experience birth trauma?
Sure, sure. Well, look, trauma is something that is experienced by anyone when they witness or experience a perhaps their partner or their baby in danger. Where the stakes are very high and they're in very grave danger of passing away. So that can cause emotional trauma in men. Birth trauma for women it's two pronged. There's physical trauma as well as emotional trauma. In Australia, they say that about 33% of women, or a third of women, will describe their birth as traumatic. We don't have numbers for men. We haven't done that study. That's actually on the back burner for the Prepare Foundation. We want to know how many men are experiencing trauma. So if a
Mm.
man goes through witnessing his partner with a hemorrhage, or she gets rushed away to surgery, he's left with the baby. Maybe the baby is born with a low APGAR score, which is a measure of the health of a newborn baby, and that can cause ongoing traumatic kind of flashbacks. And in men, it presents as irritability, anger, lack of concentration, those kind of things. And when it comes to the resources that are geared towards men and women, there's the Australian Birth Trauma Association. There's also a Birth Trauma Association in the UK. But for dads at the moment, there isn't really a lot going on. So there's a bit of stigma around birth trauma in men, just like there's stigma in postnatal mental health issues in men as well. One study recently showed that, uh, and it was across Canada, the UK, the US, and Australia, and they surveyed 4,000 men, and 45% of those didn't realize that they could also get postnatal depression. And so,
Wow.
yeah, that's right. So men aren't even realizing that, and this is what happened to me. I experienced birth trauma, which was the reason why we're here, or that I'm here, because I experienced birth trauma, and afterwards I kind of thought, well, the birth wasn't that bad, and I had all of the symptoms that I've just previously mentioned.
Stephen, the same
And
thing happened to me. I experienced the exact same thing. So it really is a thing. It really does exist for men.
oh, it's prevalent. Look, and I think it's a silent societal kind of issue and problem that actually cascades into a lot of other social areas of our lives. I do truly believe that we have men walking around with traumatic birth experiences that have not been processed because they have very little place to go about that. So even if they talk to their sister or their brother-in-law or the guy down the street or their golfing partner, they say, "Oh wow, that was so tough." The first response is all not always, but is most likely to be, "Well, I think your partner probably had it a lot worse than you did, mate. Suck it up." And
Hmm.
I find that it's actually really uh, it's kind of this mixed message that we're giving to men. On the one level, we're kind of trying to say to men, "Hey guys, we want you to be more connected to your heart, to be more emotional, to share what's going on with your emotional landscape." But on the other hand, when it comes to childbirth, we want them just to suck it up and not to share, because it's kind of like, well, the woman has a much more significant experience, which is absolutely true. And I totally support that. And we have to support mothers. But I also say that the experience of men is not automatically, therefore, insignificant. And what I found through my research is that I do believe that men carry this, and that it goes into our society in really unhelpful ways. It can manifest as
Mm.
domestic violence, domestic and family violence. It can manifest as suicide, isolation, uh, substance abuse in men, mental health issues, and those kind of society-wide kind of aspects are really problematic. And I think that that's one aspect of the masculine kind of evolution that we have to look at and say, well, if guys are having an emotional experience here, we do have to create a space for them to be able to share that and just be more open about what they're experiencing when it comes to childbirth. Because, childbirth isn't, it's dangerous sometimes, and, bad things happen.
And that
And
makes me wonder too, because are some dads shy about having that second child if they had a birth trauma experience the first time around? And is there some thought going on somewhere in the back of their heads, some maybe a form of guilt that's saying, I did that, or I might have caused that. I might be responsible for that event that happened. And I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to be the instigator or the reason that that traumatic event happens a second time. I mean, is this a background thought that's happening in many fathers' heads?
I look, definitely don't want a second child. I have anecdotal evidence around that, but I don't have any evidence to say that men are blaming themselves about the first traumatic event. Although, and the reason for that is we haven't asked them. So down the track, we will be asking men whether or not they felt that they were responsible, and I do believe that that is the case in some cases, and that's exactly why I'm trying to do the work that I'm doing, so that men walk in with a bit more confidence and trust childbirth, because I think that's one of the things that was overlooked when they brought men into the room back in the 1970s. They didn't really they wouldn't have sat back and kind of thought, well, we can't bring men in because it triggers, childbirth will trigger their primal protector role and
Hmm.
therefore bring adrenaline into the room. You know, and that's the thing that I think is happening in birth suites all over the world. The protector role in men is being triggered. They have an emotional kind of fear response, and that fear can be passed on to the birthing woman, and that actually slows down labour, and it may just also be partly responsible for the poor statistics that we see in Western democracies of high cesarean rates, high trauma rates, actually high maternal mortality rates. A statistic
Hmm.
for you that I'm not sure you're aware of, but in the United States, a woman is twice as more likely to die in childbirth than her own mother.
Wow.
So it's not improving in the States, and it's definitely not improving in Australia.
Sounds like we
Yeah.
really need a wake up call in the States.
Oh yeah, look, the birth culture in the United States really has got some serious problems. It's the cesarean rate has increased 500% in one generation. And if anyone's
Hmm.
interested in kind of looking into a little more detail around that, Dr. Neil Shah, N-E-L Shah, he's a wonderful obstetrician who's been doing a lot of magnificent work on trying to discover why that's happening.
Yeah, I would say we definitely need a wake up call because what we're doing isn't working so well. And if anything, it is causing a lot of damage and on so many levels. So we're
Yeah.
going to talk a little bit about some of the stereotypes that are out there. And I think some of these stereotypes may be generational when it comes to dads. So are a lot of new dads missing out on opportunities to bond with their baby because of stereotypes? Or is it just not feeling confident? And if so, how?
Yeah. So, yes, absolutely, they are missing out on opportunities, and the reason for that is, as you say, confidence, but it's also got to do with societal values, and whenever I talk about my work, I realize and I share that I do believe that this is a generational project. I'm not going to see the outcomes. It is a long term kind. I'm trying to change a few thousand years of culture and trying to introduce men into this world. And I think personally, I think that that's the one problem, the one solution that we haven't actually addressed. We brought men into the room in the 1970s. They caused a lot of trouble, and they're still kind of there's still a bit of that going on. And the one thing that hasn't strategically and comprehensively been tried is engaging fathers and saying, this is what childbirth looks like. This is how you can help. So when it comes to parenting, our whole society we're at a transition zone, I believe, and that is going from the father that is the stoic protector, provider, and disciplinarian. That in the 70s and the 60s, you know, I'm generalizing here. It's hard not to in this environment, in this
Hmm.
world of birth, but that was their role. So dad would go to work. He'd come home. If the child had done anything, untoward, he'd have to have a word with the child. Sometimes it was more than that, and he was stoic, and he was an emotional brick. Now,
Hmm.
men are opening up a little, and that's thankfully we're starting to be exposed to the idea that we can be nurturing and tender and loving to our children and also be masculine. And I think that that's a wonderful, part of our evolution in masculinity. But as I say, I think it's in a transition. There are certain men who say to themselves, "Oh, I can do this. I can do it all. Everything except for breastfeeding, I'm capable of." And incidentally, when you look at the hormonal landscape, the hormones are the chemical that is expressed throughout the body, and it allows us to feel and change our emotional attitude towards things, and also the changes in neurobiology in our brains when we become fathers are very similar to the changes in the brain when the mother becomes a mother for the first time or second or third time. And also, the changes in her hormones are the same as the changes in a dad. So, we actually have a
Really?
human response to a child being around us, not a gendered one, kind of like a feminine and a masculine. That is actually been proven scientifically to not be the case. So the science is in, and we do know that men are absolutely capable of being of meeting the needs, every need of a child. So that nurturing, tender, loving, caring side of dads can take care of that. But we haven't taught the guys that yet. So we still have like people who their own parents might have been in that gendered sense, and that mum did all the caring and dad was still that stoic, because we're in these first few generations of change. And I do
Yeah,
think that yeah.
this is a very recent thing. You're absolutely right. I mean,
Mm.
this is how it was for the boomer generation. And so you have the Gen Xers that are sitting right on that fence of, okay, there's this new way that we can look at fathering right from the early years within the first 1,000 days. It can look differently, but at the same time, this is the way I was brought up. And this seems more confident because this is what I know. And there's this generational straddling. And then on the other side of that, you have Generation Z and all the future generations from there that are more open to doing things completely differently. I look at the work that you have cut out for you trying to change generations of stereotypes that just really don't work very well. And
Yeah,
it just
well,
seems like a monumental task.
oh, look, it is, and I don't think about it like that, but otherwise I would stop. But look, parenting has also changed. Parenting itself has changed. We've done in the last 2 decades. We've done more, research into parenting. We know much more about attachment styles. We know much more about, what works when it comes to discipline. We know and harm that some physical discipline can have. And so the parents of today are much better equipped to bring up awesome humans. And when I mean, even speaking from my own experience, when we look back and we kind of like my mother and the way she parented, there wasn't much that I wanted to carry forward. A lot of it was, I mean, she taught me the basics a lot, but there are certain aspects that I was just like, I don't think I'm going to want to be doing that, mum. You know, and I think that as parents today, we know a lot more than we did before, and even I think that we sometimes reject that generational kind of the past parenting styles. One of the things I would say to a new dad who's holding that newborn, face it with a sense of curiosity, not inadequacy. So
Mm.
be curious about what your child is trying to say by their crying. So babies do communicate. They've got a few different types of cry. So this cry means I'm cold. This cry means I'm hungry. This cry means my nappy is wet, diaper. And so have that sense of curiosity, and remember that newborn babies, even although they look like they're made of porcelain, they're actually quite resilient. Okay, so as long as you're holding them correctly and supporting their neck, and just facing things with an outlook of love and an outlook of tenderness, then that baby will be fine. And even although it might cry a fair bit or a little bit, it's okay. Like a crying baby is just trying to communicate with you. It's actually
Mhm.
just exactly the same as a toddler saying, I'm hungry. Okay. And so that baby it's crying, and you think, oh my God, it's really, really serious. It's serious, but it's not. It's actually not that serious when your baby is crying. Sometimes it is, sorry. You've got to kind of make sure that it's not an emergency. But
It's
yeah,
just a
like
language.
yeah, it's just a language, and not to be all kind of pent up, and not to get too overwhelmed by the idea of them crying. It's okay. And the more you have that attitude of it's okay, it's all right. They're not harmed right now. They're just trying to tell me something, and having that curiosity of what is it they're trying to tell me. That's really where I think you can find your groove quite easily, because you don't get upset or taken over by the idea that there's something actually going wrong.
And you are correct. There has been some knowledge out there that there are specific cries that mean very specific things. And if you can learn what those cries are, what to listen for so you can identify the cry, then you know exactly that, okay, this cry means he or she is hungry, this cry means, yes, they need a diaper or nappy change. If you can really crack the code on that and know what to listen for, you can be so much further along, and it would do wonders for your confidence. This doesn't have to be a guessing game.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're the working parent, if you have to go out and earn money to, survive, then when you come home, keep that curiosity going and ask your partner, what did you learn today? Was it, what happened today? What happened today that I should know about, so that you keep up to speed with where you're both. I really encourage couples to work as a team. That's exactly what parenting should be like. You should be in a situation
Yes.
where you can pick up, if your partner is like feeling down for a day, maybe two, you pick up the slack. I try to share with guys that it's actually about, like, you really do have to share everything. You have to start kind of showing up with all the chores, all the things that a family has to do to kind of, get through life. You have to start the cooking for the child. You have to be involved.
Stephen, how can dads get a hold of you or your organization for help or for questions?
Yeah, well, we're on Insta at Birthing Dads, and Prepare Foundation is also on Instagram. I've got a Facebook page, www.birthingdads.com.au, and we're about to release that package that I mentioned in the beginning. We've got about a month before we finalise all the licensing agreement, so that'll be out soon. And also the www.prepare.org.au. So that's pretty much what I'm up to. And there are some resources on the Prepare Foundation site. I mean, if there's anyone wants some free resources there, we've created some documents that have been translated into 6 languages. One of them is just, how to work as a team during pregnancy, how to work as a team during birth, and how to work as a team, in that first year. And we've also got some other visual and images and posters and stuff like that you can go to and have a look at what we've been doing.
And just to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to post links to the links that you just mentioned. They are going to be in the description of this episode at the very bottom of the description. So if you go to thefatherhoodchallenge.com, that's thefatherhoodchallenge.com, and you go to this episode, go to the description and look below the description. The links will be there just to make it a little bit easier. So Stephen, thank you so much for being on the program. It's been an absolute honor to have you on. And I've learned a lot just from our conversation. And I know our listening dads have as well. So thanks again.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I could talk underwater about this stuff. And I guess I'm going to have to, because it will take a while to get this, this change that I'm seeking across the line. So yeah, thanks for all the work you're doing as well. This is a wonderful podcast, and I look forward to listening to some more episodes in the future.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fatherhood Challenge. If you would like to contact us, listen to other episodes, find any resource mentioned in this program, or find out more information about the Fatherhood Challenge, please visit thefatherhoodchallenge.com. That's thefatherhoodchallenge.com.